Hello and welcome to the Real Franchise, a video series designed to deliver real information, real answers, and real insights into franchising. This series is brought to you by James Home Services Australia. I'm the CEO, and Justin is one of our owners and our Director of New Businesses. Together, we're going to jump in and tackle all of the big topics: unscripted, unplanned, and unfiltered. No sales, no fluff. We're just going to give you information straight up. Today's topic is all about an introduction to Justin and myself. And it sounds maybe like a little bit of an odd place to start. We just said we're going to jump in and give you real answers and tackle the big topics. But we feel like maybe getting to know us just a little bit is actually the best place to start. So I'm going to start by saying, Justin, when I first met you, it was just over 4 years ago now. We didn't know each other from a bar of soap. And I just started working for your soon-to-be business partner and co-owner of James Home Services Australia. And one of the first encounters that we had was that your business partner, Darren, had said to me, I was on the due diligence team. We were looking at the time at purchasing James. And so my role was to investigate the business, basically, and come back to you and Darren with is this worth it? Is this not? Are there obstacles? Are there challenges? And one of the first things that I had to do was call you and just get a little bit of a debrief. And I remember it was late. It was a Friday night. It was definitely outside of work hours. And Darren said, just ring him and just get talking to him and just start to learn the ropes. I was totally new to the business, had no idea what we were about to step into. And I called you, and the first thing you said to me was, yeah, I'm just sitting on my back porch having a can of Coke. Fire away. Ask me anything. And I did. I dived straight in. We didn't have time to waste. And I had done due diligence processes before, and you don't hold back. You dive in. Your job is to get to understand forensically the business. And so I asked you some pretty direct questions straight up about the business and the model and its flaws and how it was tracking. And you just answered every single question I had for you, honestly. And I won't forget that conversation because it set the tone for how you work, and it set the tone for how we lead James. And I think it's a really lovely place to start this chat, is that the first thing I remember about you was just the total frankness and honesty and upfrontness that you had when this complete stranger was asking you questions about James. But at that point, you had already been involved in James Home Services for a very long time. How long? This was 4 years ago, but how long have you actually been involved in James?
Yeah, well, my wife and I, we had a farm. Well, prior to that, going back, I worked for a company called West Farmers. I was their regional manager, the same company that owned Bunnings and Coles and things like that. I was their regional manager for North Queensland. Just got sick of the corporate hours, leaving home at the dark, getting home in the dark, 3 young girls and all that sort of thing. And so I took some time out. I resigned and worked on our farm and worked as a business consultant, just with a bit of experience that I'd had in managing and helping bigger businesses. Worked up here on the Atherton Tablelands in North Queensland, working with small business and really got to see people in small business just know we're practical for them to turn for help. They're on their own, right? And I sort of had that in the back of my mind. And one of my key clients was a charity that we used to organise cattle droves out west for kids in the bush, and people, kids struggling with drug, alcohol abuse, all that sort of thing. And people like Troy Casadale used to come along and do concerts for us, and it was awesome. And one of the companies that sponsored the cattle drove was James Home Services. So that's where I first got to hear about it. And long story made short, thought this business could have a really good fit in North Queensland. Because it's all about helping people learn how to run a business and run a good business. Particularly, I find families really do well in this business. And so that was sort of the drive. And so to answer your question, getting to answering the question now, end of 2009, my wife and I sat down and went through what we call now an information session. Just found out a bit about James. We then went down and met part of the team. We didn't have Zoom back then, so we had to fly down to Southeast Queensland, go around and meet a few franchisees, And I thought, wow, this really does work. And so we bought out and started our first franchise with James February 2010. So, we're now in June 24. So, yeah, what's that, 14 and a half years? So, been in the business a while, as franchisees right through now to being one of the owners. So, yeah, obviously pretty passionate about the business and what it can do for, everyday Aussies.
What was the impetus when it became available for sale 4 years ago? What made you think, actually, I want to be part of the national business? Because you were already a regional franchisor, and as part of that role, you had started and sold successfully franchises as well. What made you want to take on the national business? What was it that you saw that you wanted to pursue?
I guess fundamentally, like James had been through some challenges. I think through this period, particularly from probably 2013 on, it's been challenging for the entire franchising industry. So many franchises in this country have really struggled for a whole range of reasons. Maybe the topic for another one of these sessions, but not for today. But fundamentally at the grassroots, the actual franchises themselves, they're a great business model and a great way to help people who probably wouldn't be able to make it on their own build a great business, having the benefit of support. And so we built a great team up here in North Queensland, still have a great team of franchisees and people in North Queensland with James, and just thought, you know what, this business, yes, it might have had its struggles at the top, but fundamentally at the grassroots, it's a sound business, and was passionate about that. And I thought, naively, with my decade in the business, to me, there were three key areas that we needed to fix, and everything would be rosy and we'd ride off into the sunset, and this would be this huge mega business. We fixed those three things. You and myself worked on that. We're still working on some of those things, but we've learnt that there's a lot of challenges, and I think for us as an organisation, the big tipping point for us has been that idea that you came up with, which will no doubt be a topic of another discussion, of the subscription model, and then fleshing that out over a period of about 18 months. That has really made it possible for people to get a start in their own business, because sadly, most of us don't have a lump sum of money sitting aside that we can throw into buying a business. And so we don't do it. We stay in our jobs, stay in the rut, working 9 to 5, or well, most of us wish it was only 9 to 5. We just work these jobs for a boss and never have the ability to be in control of our own lifestyles, which is what I think one of the great things that you can get in your own business with James.
Yeah. So at its core, it was a passion for small business and helping people, really, that have led you to where
absolutely.
you are. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's the same for me.
For
me, one of the first full-time jobs that I worked was in the summer between my first and my second year of university, and I was studying business. And as a 19-year-old, you think you know it all, right? You're 19, you've done 1 year of business studies at university, and you think you've got it nailed. You think you've got everything sorted and you know everything there is to know about business. And an opportunity came up in my local general store, post office, cafe. I live in a small town, so that little hub of a business that acts as a hub for your small community. I was working in that business previously, and the previous manager walked out one night under not great circumstances, and the owners were scratching for someone to manage it. And so this naive little 19-year-old stuck my hand in the air and said, yeah, I'll do it, having no idea what I was about to walk into. And a little bit like you when you bought James, thinking, I just got to fix a few things up, tidy a few things up, take care of my staff, and we'll all be good, happy days. And that job was the first time in life, and I think probably I was really fortunate. I was only 19 at the time, but this insanely bright light bulb switched on inside of me, and I was like, this is incredible. I was doing a turnaround management. I was managing a business doing 1.5 mil turnover. I had about 15 staff, a lot of young people who would work after school shifts. So this was their first job, giving them their first opportunity at learning skills. And I just found a passion for the work that I was doing that I hadn't experienced in anything else before. And, you know, in years after that, I went on and I worked in the legal industry thinking that I wanted to be a commercial litigator. 3 years in law was enough for me to know that my strengths weren't suited to that kind of a position. And then I landed in Cairns and I started working as a business consultant, and I worked a lot with small businesses, but also with larger businesses, and doing regional economic development work and doing business sales. I did a whole host of different jobs. But time and time again in my career, it was the memories of how happy and fulfilled I had felt in that little community-based small business, turning it around, taking care of those staff, making a profit for the owners, because profit isn't a dirty word. We're all in business to make money. And so, you know, when I was doing the end of months and saw that we had produced a profit, I was really proud of myself. And it is a theme throughout my career. The thing that gets me out of bed and that makes me feel most fulfilled when I'm working is helping people navigate the complexity of small business, because it's not easy. It's so hard. So we have that very much in common. And I get out of bed now, still pinching myself. 4 years. I've been working for James now for 4 years, and I still get out of bed every single morning and think, how on earth am I in my early 30s and I have somehow landed my dream job? How? I always had aspirations of being in leadership, and I always had aspirations of doing something that helped others. And somehow I've landed here so early in my career, and I just feel incredibly fortunate that I have.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be something I wanted to know. So for you, you came from the due diligence team, went through all that process with us, and Darren and myself, we ended up buying the national business. And then you stuck your hand up for CEO to actually run it. What drove that?
A lot of things. If I'm totally honest, part of what drove it was that I'm a really big believer of making sure that when you're working alongside people, those people are put in positions where they're working to their strengths. And something that I think I've always been quite good at is identifying what strengths individuals have, and then being able to see, well, how can we best leverage that strength? Because if you work someone to their strengths, you're going to get better outcomes, and they're going to be happier because they're going to be doing something that they actually love and feel passionate about. And you were our managing director for that first 18 months or so. And, you know, you mentioned before there was 3 things you thought we needed to tackle and fix and overcome, and then happy days. And, you know, it's no secret that we did tackle those 3 things, and there was still lots of challenges that we were facing. And I could also see that the more your time was being spent on those sorts of things, the less you were able to focus on actually where your passion and your real skill set lies, which is in working with new business owners, potentially bringing them into the team. And so part of it was that I could see that you weren't being given the opportunity to work to your strengths. And I could see that you were becoming, you know, frustrated that you were doing all the things you thought we needed to do, and it just wasn't having the outcome that you thought it was going to have, or at least maybe not as quickly as you thought it might have had. So part of it was that I genuinely thought, and I mean, this sounds really it sounds kind of young know-it-all, but I genuinely thought that I had something more I could be bringing to the table. I felt that I had different strengths and different ideas and a different perspective. And because I hadn't come from a background in franchising, I was totally naive to franchising. And I think in a way that's a good thing, and it's been a bad thing. It's been a bad thing because I've learnt a lot along the way that I wish I knew before I started. But it's been a good thing because I can look at the model and I can say, well, why do we do it this way? And maybe we need to hybrid between franchising and a totally private kind of a model. Like so I genuinely thought that I could bring a little bit more to the table. You know, there was also just a tiny little bit of, well, actually there was a lot of I want to challenge myself. And, you know, you and Darren got to a point where you said, we're really impressed with the work that you're doing, and we'd like you to stick around, you know, we'd like you to make a commitment to us. And I went away and I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, I really do want to stick this out. I want to commit to this. I really started to genuinely see in James what you saw all along, and what your business partner Darren saw when he came into the fold as well. And I thought, I really do want to stick this out. I want to see where we can take this. I believe in the people that we have working on the team and our business owners, and I think we've got something incredible to offer. But I thought, you know what, I think I also have something more to add to the table. And so if I'm going to stick around, I don't want to be too IC forever. So yeah, that's kind of what led me to sticking my hand in the air. And then I'm also a firm believer in, if you don't ask for what you want, you're not going to get it. You know, that role of manager at my local general store, I put my hand in the air. I asked for it. I said, hey, they were considering another woman who, you know, was in her 40s at the time, looked like a more stable, mature kind of a choice, as opposed to this 19-year-old, right? And they were considering her. And I actually got in the ear of one of the owners and I said, I want this. Give me a shot. And they said, oh, what if you do it together? I said, no, I want to do this. I want to see if I can do this. I want to prove to you I can do this. And it was a little bit the same with James. I wanted the opportunity to show you that I had more, and that I had ideas, and that I could work even harder. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, there was a lot of things. And I think, you know, we've mentioned a couple of times your business partner, Darren, who's also an owner. And he, you know, when he first got involved in the network and it got introduced to him as an idea to be a purchaser, it was the same things that he saw in the network that you and I both see. It's the same across the three of us. He's an accountant in far north Queensland, and
that's a really interesting story in itself. I'd never met Darren, and but I was passionate about this business, and it was up for sale in a sense, and the previous owner had approached me, and I was like, I got no idea. There's no way I can do this. And so I went and met Darren, got recommended to me, went and made an appointment, met him in his office for the first time. And the first appointment was just sharing my heart, sharing about the business, sharing where it was at, where it had come from, where it was going, all that sort of stuff. We had just a general overview of the company. And he said, look, I'll go away, give it some thought, and how about we make another appointment, come back together, and we'll have a look. I'll give you some ideas on possibly how it could be structured, how you might be able to do an acquisition. And so that was our first meeting, and literally came back for the second meeting, and he sat down and he said, look, no pressure, but I just love this. I'd love to be a part of it. You know, just being able to help families across Australia, and to see, he said, I see the potential in this business. And that really is what literally how it all started. And then I think within a week or so, you were brought into those discussions. And yeah, so it's not like we've grown up. I often have people ask me, oh, you've known Darren for years. And it's like, well, no, we met because of this. And he has been just such a, I'm sure you'd agree, having his wisdom and business experience, and James wouldn't be where it is today without his input. He's sort of the strength behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think one of our absolute strengths as a leadership team is that absolute collegiality in believing in the system and in the business and in its potential. And the same passion in all of us is what brought us all to James in the first place. And that is that we really just want to be able to help people navigate this complex world of business ownership. So, you know, we've all got very different backgrounds. You know, you've come from management and sales and having a farm and your own businesses and business consulting. I've come from law and marketing and business consulting and regional economic development and business sales. And he's come from accounting and investment and property development and all sorts of things. And yet the underlying theme in all of it is that the three of us just want to be able, through James Home Services, to help everyday people start their own businesses. And I think that makes us a pretty formidable leadership team. We're always on the same page. You know, we have very healthy discussions about what the challenges are and where to go and what to do and how to get there. And but at the end of the day, we are all aligned completely on that. You know, we want to do this because we're helping people.
Yep, that's right.
Well, I think maybe that's a great place to end our first little episode in this series. That was just a little bit of an insight. Anything else to add, or shall we wrap up there?
I think, good place to wrap up.
Perfect. Good. All right. Great. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.